several times. The pastor has to do it at least once a month because he's on the state council. I'm on the committee how do you do that?
It's not that bad.
It's not,
She did a lot of things through that Catholic school when she was active, and that helped their attendance
Right,
a
like
lot.
there.
and
I've
traffic
had
going
a
south,
lady that's been wanting me to come out
Yeah.
there and tutor
some type
for
of
after
construction.
school, but it was only like
Yeah,
2 minutes,
and
and I'm like,
it used to
I can't
be
afford to drive.
you would get to like
I live going
Riverview,
towards
Brandon,
I-75.
that area, and then
So it's like
after you
that's
got past
all the way
Apollo
down.
Beach
I'm like,
or
it's gonna
up
take
to
me
it,
an hour
the
just to
traffic
get out
wasn't
of
bad
traffic now.
until you got off at
To
Sun
tutor
City
two
Center.
students for
But
75.
now it's quicker to go
and then an
Apollo
hour
Beach,
back,
come
so
back
I
around the back
actually-
way for 301
hour
and go
driving,
right
an
now.
hour
I don't
back
know
is
what's
the same
going
as
on.
an
'Cause
hour.
I just follow the GPS and I say, okay, it's faster this way, so we're going that way instead of
Probably
going
have
all the way
that
down
on
to
camera.
Sun City Center.
Right.
Yes, both of those were.
I don't know, man.
Both of those were.
And then, of
that's
course,
how
you
I
get-
make my living is off
I'll
of
take
that.
the
It's called
Selman
Step
Expressway
for
most of the way.
Students.
I'll go
And it
Toll
is
Road,
tax
Selman
based.
Expressway, come over that way. That usually
The
seems to be
DOE
not
like
a
directs it,
horrible drive.
but it's supposed
Where
to
it
be
gets
private
the worst
donation.
sometimes when
It's not
you're
necessary.
at,
But when they pass that HB1 where the money follows
Yeah,
the child,
exactly.
is when that came enacted.
And I grew up in Revere
And
when
my daughter,
301
my
was the
18-year-old has it, and it has been like a game changer. She can now
now.
take piano lessons, she can now take, all, it covers anything
working our
academic
way
that they
there,
could have done in school.
I had to do racetrack.
She got $7,000 some dollars for the year. So it's the same as if they were going to school, that's what the school gets. And since they're not going to school, the money follows the child, so now. Yes. And so this year she dual enrolled and it paid for her books and things for the technical college she did medical administration. So, but it's paid for computer programs, it's paid for computer art programs. The only thing that I wish it did, but it didn't, was provide like an iPad or a laptop, and it won't provide either one of those. Because they could be used.
Oh, 'cause he's up
in
late,
ways like
late
that.
night.
But
Well,
for a homeschool
he
student,
wasn't
that's like a
up
necessary.
late last night,
Same
Okay.
thing with
you know,
her whole
you need to
career.
do your homework,
She was
you know how to
dyslexic,
get what's up in your
dyscalculia,
facts, you
and
know, if you're sick
dysgraphia.
and you can play video games.
And when I had her tested and found that out, and me being a public school
Tough, man.
teacher, I'm like,
Yeah.
you'll fail, there's no way. And it was, she didn't start reading, like, her first year of kindergarten, all she could handle was learning letters,
Nothing.
shapes,
Now, my mom, when she would go,
and
dad would go
vowels.
to work, she would
It
sit
took her
down
the
and fold
whole year
laundry
to
and
get
turn
her
on
vowels,
Price is
like,
Right.
absolutely.
It's always the
got
price
them.
is right, isn't it?
And then
7
we
o'clock,
started adding
just
a
come on
couple
and
letters at a time, and it would take a month or two with a couple letters at a time. So it took a whole nother year to be able to be fluent. With me being a reading specialist, knowing how important it is just the sound recognition and getting your brain to do it like this. Which is not how most schools teach. Because that way your mind then has a pathway to put together words quickly because of the way you learned it. Sort of like a Montessori kind of thing, but it's a private school in Pensacola.
Good morning, everyone. We're going to call this meeting to order. It's 9 a.m. All right, we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Everyone, please stand and face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, roll call. Mr. Bramlett. Here. And Mr. Campbell is absent. Mrs. Nelson.
Present.
Mrs. Myers. Hey, that's right. I believe I'm here. Mrs. Ramlow.
I'm here.
Mrs. Benefield.
Here.
Mr. Reagan. Mrs. Ebbets is absent. And that is it. All right. Next we have is the approval of the minutes from the meeting February the 25th. I trust that everyone had time to read, go over the minutes. If you have any adjustments you would like to be made or any edits, please make that known now. If we don't, do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Seeing there, anyone opposed? Okay. Next, we will open to the public. And again, remember that we have a 3-minute timeline for every person, 3-minute timeline. And not only that, but we ask that everyone maintain decorum. You must fill out a green card. And not only that, but make sure that you address the chair, not library staff, not the public, not the other members of the library advisory board, but make sure you address specifically the library chair, library advisory board chair, okay? Incidentally, that's me. So, anyone would like to speak? Do we have anybody? Seeing there are no speakers, there he is.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank Vice Chair Ramlo for her.
My apologies. Please state your name
I'm
and where
sorry,
you're
Michael
from.
Connell from Floral City, and I'll grab a card. This restricted access card idea, I think, is fabulous. It doesn't affect anyone in the public negatively in any way. So it's the most reasonable thing that I can. I didn't think of it. You did, and thank you very much.
Adam did.
Thanks, Adam. Great work. Hope that everyone votes for it. And that's all I have to say. I appreciate it.
Thank
Great
you.
day for the children.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing there are no, okay.
I don't know if this is the time to speak or not, but. I'm Lala Sanders. I live in Inverness. I guess I'm just here, and I'm just going to read what I had written, what the Lord had laid on my heart. God has given us the responsibility to take care of the gifts He has given us, one of us being our children. These books, these adults, while writing these books, are violating, lusting, and raping the children in their minds. To me, it is like bringing illegal books to our shelves, and things need to change. So I agree with whatever positive things you're going to bring to the table today. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, did, Ms. Sanders, did you fill out a green card?
Let me just fall into it.
There you go.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Betty Honkinen. I've been a resident of Citrus County since 1998. I've decided to speak this morning because I can't understand why you entertain these same people over and over again who want to push their doctrine on everyone rather than allowing parents to make the decisions regarding what their own children read or do not read. If your religion forbids you from reading certain books or materials or viewing certain genres on film or TV, that's absolutely fine with me. But your religion absolutely does not give you the right to push your agenda on everyone. Let the parents do their jobs and mind your own business. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry. He's right over there to the right. Are you speaking, sir?
Yes.
You're up. You can fill that out after.
I wasn't prepared. This is scary. I'm not used to speaking in front of people.
We can't eat you.
Yeah, I'm here for parents' rights. And I've been to all these library meetings, a few of them, and yeah, I don't really understand what's going on, but it comes down to parents can say yes or no. I think they should have that choice. Thank you.
Just state your name and where you're from. I'm
Gary
sorry.
McClintock, Hernando, Florida.
I believe there was a good Western with a name like that.
That's what I was thinking.
Anyone else? If you would like to speak, you just step on up after each speaker and make sure we fill out a green card. And also, Name and where you're from.
Dean Bales from Homosassa Springs. I was not quite an angel when I was a kid, surprise. Um, but back in the late 70s when I was a kid, in the little town I grew up in, there was a convenience store, and the pornographic stuff was behind the clerk inside the enclosure where his register was, and the tobacco and all the rest of that stuff. And on the other side of where the pornography was where the comic books were, outside that perimeter. Well, we learned we could reach up over the top when the clerk's back was turned, and yoink, and we could pull out something pornographic, and we could be appearing to reading a comic book when we really weren't. And but yeah, there needs to be some more serious kind of a barrier to preventing the hooligans, which I once was, from gaining access to stuff like that. It's a good start, that this proposed regulation is voted for. It would be a good thing. I'll start. Well, that's it. Okay, thanks.
All right. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'm not thrilled about talking in front of people. I know you're not going to eat me, but my voice might crack a little bit. But
It's
you know
all
what? I
good.
have grandkids here. My name is Kat McClintock. Married to that one. And some of the education and some of the information they have available today, I didn't have growing up, and I'm glad I didn't have that growing up. I mean, I made wrong choices on my own, not having to read things in a book, and some of the things that are in some of the books, I wouldn't read out loud here. Why would my grandkid be able to do that? I think parents should have the ability to censor, monitor, at least until a certain age. And then they can teach their kids what they want and hope that they did the best they could. But not having the parents have the rights to monitor that and to really be able to say what's good for their child. Some kids could do it and read stuff and just walk away. They'll be fine. Other kids are going to be impacted by it. Some in a positive way, but some in a very, very negative way. And I think parents should have the rights, so I would support the proposal that's being talked about right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good morning. Robin Orlandi, Dunellen. Just to address the previous speaker's comment, I would say that now parents do have the ability to monitor what their children are reading. It's already built in with the library itself. My concern with the proposed library cards by age and the restrictions is that essentially it's a form of censorship that creates more barriers to literacy for young adults. Little kids, separate discussion, but for young adults, it's already difficult enough to get children to read when we look at literacy levels, which, from my perspective, is what the library and the community should be more focused on than worrying about this false narrative that, libraries contain smut and librarians are this or that, which is simply not true. It's a false narrative that has other objectives. The responsibility for what kids read lies with the parents. If the parents object to the materials that are available at the library, then they should either go to the library with them or, sit down and have a discussion with their children about that. Because, as an earlier speaker said, it's part of natural progression to adulthood that kids are curious. They're going to look, but my experience as a librarian in a very small, conservative Midwestern community was that kids will look at a book that's like, ooh, did you? And then it's like, what is this? And they put it down, and then they go on to pick a thing that's appropriate to the interests they have, which are not prurient by nature, as we know. The other piece of this that really troubles me is that it's based on the ideal of kids in a nuclear family, where there's two parents available, and a lot of the children that would be unable to get materials that perhaps they need when they're 16, 17, 18 years old. They're not going to be able to get that. So what if they're in an abusive family and they need to find information about abuse? Well, no access for the library for you. What if they have a parent that works all the time, or a parent that's disabled or addicted? I need information about this guy that keeps bothering me or trying to get me to do drugs or whatever. Can I go to the library to get it? Well, mom's won't go and get me the card. So now I'm restricted. I think that the existing limits, young adult, 15 to 18, the way it's set up now works fine. If you look at the way state laws are, it's also consistent with that. 16 years old, age of consent in the majority of the United States. 16 years old can be tried as an adult. 16 years old can be emancipated as an adult. Little kids, again, separate subject. But for young adults, we don't want to put a kid in a life jacket until they're 18 and say, okay,
Excuse me,
now
your
it's
time
over.
has expired.
Oh,
Thank you.
has it? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is that thing no?
It was working.
Yeah, I didn't see it.
No, it was working, now it's not.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
Okay,
Sorry.
thank you. Sorry about that. Okay, anyone else? And I apologize, the thing appears to not be working, so if it's appropriate, I'll just give you a 30-second kind of warning, okay?
Yeah, just wanted to comment on the restricted access card. I know the
State your name and where you're from.
Oh, I'm Doug Florence from Floral City. And yeah, I just think it's a wonderful idea. I just like the idea that you get parental involvement in the materials that the kids are, taking out of the library and using. It's just a wonderful idea, and I appreciate Edith putting that up for a presentation.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing there are no other speakers, I am closing open to public. Okay, so we'll now allow board members, if you'd like to comment on any of the public input. I will reserve my comment for the later time. I think most everything was addressing what we are going to address in new business, so I don't feel it's appropriate for me to comment at this time. Anyone else?
Agreed.
Okay. All right. So we are going to move to special items. Director Chang?
Thank you, Chair. So our special item here, what I wanted to do is take a moment to recognize Debbie Riley. And she has recently received an award from the Florida Department of Education as the Outstanding School Volunteer of the Year. So just a little brief background here. So as most of you know, Debbie is a dedicated volunteer for many organizations in Citrus County. She's a community leader and a strong advocate for literacy. No matter what organizations need, Debbie is always there. She tirelessly volunteers her time to help make Citrus County a better place. I'm sure that many of you have had Debbie reach out to you for First Library to read in the schools, or for Leadership Citrus and various other events. She's always willing to help with any event there is. So she was recently recognized at the state for her volunteer efforts supporting Citrus County schools and the Education Foundation. Debbie was named the Florida Department of Education's Outstanding Volunteer of the Year. And on behalf of the Citrus County Library System, I want to thank you for going above and beyond, Debbie, with all of your volunteer efforts and supporting so many great causes in Citrus County. So, thank you. And Chair, would you join me for a picture?
Absolutely.
She's all. She enjoys that.
Every time.
So I just want to say real quick on Debbie, and Debbie is not about this kind of stuff, so she'll get me later. But Debbie I have known Debbie since 2019, I believe, is when. And Debbie came to our church for a Global Leadership Summit. We were hosting. We went to lunch, had some talk back and forth. She started coming. And not only did she start coming, but Debbie almost immediately got involved with helping out. And when I say she's a phone call away, she's literally a phone call away anytime you need her. She's one of the brightest, most organized, and intentional volunteers I've ever met in my life. Yeah. And that is absolutely the truth. And she's that way in every place she's at. The library system is going to be in trouble when she retires. Mm-hmm. And I believe, I'm praying that there is one out there that can fill the shoes of Debbie Riley. And I say that without remiss. I believe that. Adam, good luck. But anyways, thank you, Debbie, for all your service that you offer to our community. We are indebted to you. Not to mention, she's a retired drill sergeant too, by the way. All right. Next, we're going to move on to, report of officers and standing work groups. I don't believe we have any of that right now, okay? So regular business. Now, in regular business, I just want to make a comment. There was a slight mistake that was made on the agenda. The director's report comes before branch updates and library public relations update. So if it pleases everyone, we'll just allow that to take place as it should be. Does anyone have any objection to that? No? Okay, Director.
All right, thank you, Chair. All right, so first thing is a staffing update. So you all should have received the new organization chart. We've added a couple new staff, or we filled a couple positions, I should say, since we last met in February. One of them being a new supervisor over at the Homosassa branch, new custodians, a new library aide. We currently have one opening, and it's for a youth librarian position, which interviews are scheduled to take place, I believe, later this week. Tomorrow. We're doing interviews tomorrow for the youth position, so we hope to have that one filled fairly soon, getting ready for our summer programming starting in June. So, okay. Next up is our coastal region renovation. So as you all know, we finished the renovation over at Lakes Region, then we immediately jumped into the renovation of the Coastal Region Library. If you were to go to that library today, you'll see a much different library, a lot of construction going on right now. We're just about finished with the meeting room that we added. We've added the study rooms as well. I believe those are 99% complete. And they've done all the lighting. They've worked on changing all the ceiling tiles out. The current phase that they're in right now is they're doing some patching before we go ahead and do some painting. There's a lot of patchwork to be done with the library. Over the last 25, 30 years, there's been a lot of things in different places that have shifted, moved, and been hung up or removed. So there's just patching that needs to take place before they can go ahead and come in and do the paint work. Painting is scheduled for the end of May. We're shooting for the end of May to do painting, and then carpet will follow shortly after that. But we are on target to get this building finished, hopefully before the end of the fiscal year. I was hoping for a summer kind of completion, but because we have summer reading that will start again at the beginning of June, I don't want to take away from that. I don't want to have that impacted, so we want to make sure Coastal is fully open and available for all the kids that need to come in and get some books and attend our programs over the summer. But renovation's going really well. Staff are working very hard in ever-changing conditions over there to get everything ready to go and keep the level of service to where we always have our citrus libraries. So everything is going well there. Print, copy, scan. This is a project that we're finally able to roll out. I'm very happy to see this one actually be live in all of our libraries now. But what this project is, it's a new PC management and reservation system for our library. So it's the way that our patrons log into our computers, but it also updated the way that patrons can print and they can scan and they can get access to their documents that they need. So what this does is now it allows for color printing. It also allows for wireless printing and a print from home option. It has a large format scanner as well, so people can scan to various different formats. They can scan directly to their phone now. They can scan to USB drives. They can scan to print. It gives a lot more functionality, and it all kind of ties really really well together, but it gives us a lot of good features now that really bring our library up to more of a modern standard, I think. We've gotten a lot of really good comments on this one so far. We've only had it live since last Thursday, so it's only been up for about 3 days now, but everybody's overwhelmingly positive about the changes. Some big differences with this, though, is that patrons, when they go to print now, they have to prepay before they print. Before they could print and then walk up and then pay. Now this kiosk requires a prepayment before it releases the print.
And how much are the
Sure.
use of it?
So for the printing black and white, we always had black and white printing available. That was 15 cents before, and it's remained 15 cents now. So it's 15 cents a page to print in black and white, and then color printing is 30 cents a page. So either option is available, and they're for the most part pretty clear where people can print. They know which box they're checking as far as if they want to color black and white, so they don't accidentally get one or the other. But we're seeing that people are really enjoying the wireless printing so far. I think it's a huge positive for our community to be able to just print directly from their own devices.
And the scanning is not a cost?
There's no cost of scanning. We only charge for basically the toner and the paper that comes out of the printer at 15 cents. It's just to recoup those costs. Okay. All right. And then we had 2 book sales by our friends group. So we had our Homosassa book sale. They just had that one. Went very well. I was there for their opening day. They had a very long line to get in, from what I saw in the pictures. Everyone was very positive, very happy, selecting a lot of really good materials. I don't have a final number or a total that they raised at that one, but it was a very successful sale from all I could see. And then we also had our spring sale for the Focals group, the mega sale that's held at the Citrus Springs Community Center. That one also went very well. I was there again on that one, opening day as well. A very long line of people, very, very busy to start the sale. I know they did a very good job with that one. Again, don't have a final total. I know it's somewhere in the 29,000, 30,000 range that they raised, but it was a very, very good sale. I know a couple of you also helped out at that sale as well. So thank you for that. And I'm sure you also would agree that it was a very busy time there and well received by the community.
Good job.
Yep. You're up.
That is you, Taylor.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Okay, so we have got a lot of things to cover. I feel like I say that every month. We always have lots to cover. So as has been a really popular topic in our last few meetings, we are talking about our digital book clubs, and those are run through the Libby app. And so for the last year, we have been doing our own version of a digital book club called Citrus Reads, which we started last year on National Library Week in April. Since then, we have done almost half a dozen titles that we have worked to select to kind of bring forward so that you guys, our patrons, would have some good options to read. And so our most recent Citrus Libraries read was Break Every Rule, which was sponsored by our Homosassa friends. And then Overdrive, 4 times a year, sponsors their own digital book club. And so their most recent title was The Queen of Sugar Hill, which had 150 checkouts. So those are fantastically high numbers for us. We always get really excited when we see anything over 100 for numbers coming in with those. We currently have a Citrus Reads going on right now. It's the Door-to-Door Bookstore is the title. It's available both in audiobook and ebook. And so that one was sponsored by our Floral City Friends of the Library and started again during National Library Week earlier this month. And so this one is actually a book that was written by a German author that is a translated text for us. And so we just loved the concept of the story. It's just a guy who delivers books to his neighbors, and a little girl kind of joins along and becomes friends and understands the joy of giving books and stories to people in their community. And so it's a really great book. I have heard that the audiobook is very entertaining, and just the way, like, it's a very quick, kind of pithy reading that they do for the audiobook. And so if you haven't checked it out, you're more than welcome to do that still with your Libby app and your library card. So a quick update for you on our 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten program. So this is a challenge and an initiative that is run through our Beanstack app. And so you'll hear us talking about Beanstack a lot in the next couple of months, as Beanstack is the way that we log and record all of the reading and the minutes that our kids do during the summer. And so when we started using Beanstack almost 4 years ago now, we had parents almost immediately saying, we love that our school-age kids are getting to do this. What about our littles? We've got 3 or 4 older kids. Our little one isn't getting to participate, and they want to do something. What can we do for them? And so a lot of libraries around the country participate in this challenge called 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten. And so one of our youth librarians and I worked really hard over the summer of 2023 to kind of get this program put together and launched, and we launched it in October of 2023. And so since then, we have had more than 230 readers enroll in the challenge. 17 readers have completed it. As you can see in this picture, that is D'Artagnan. He is a regular at our Central Ridge branch. He was actually our first little one to complete it. He was very excited when he completed his challenge and quickly ran into the library that day and was ready and very excited to tell Miss Kim that he had finished his challenge. And then when our kiddos finish that challenge, we give them a yard sign that says, I have read 1,000 books. I completed my challenge, that they can take home and put in their yard. And not even a few days later, I was sent a picture, someone driving through their neighborhood saying, I didn't know we handed out yard signs from the library. What is this? And I was like, yes, D'Artagnan put his yard sign out. So it was very exciting to see that what we were hoping would worked, and that they were super excited to do that. Since we have rolled out that challenge, I looked back at the numbers yesterday in June of 2024, so our kickoff for summer reading, we had 42 new readers enroll in the challenge that month. A handful of them have completed the challenge since then, and that is our highest number since the very first month that we launched it. And so we see an increase of readers enrolling and using Beanstack in the summer months, so June in particular. And so it wasn't a surprise to us, really, to see that we saw a large number of readers enrolling and participating last summer in June.
Do we have an update as of what we have for 2025?
I did not pull that particular number for just what our enrollments are. I will say our enrollments have been a little low. This year alone, we've had a lot of change and adjustment with the retirements and our new youth librarians coming in. Right. And so 1,000 books is always there, and they're talking about it, but it hasn't necessarily been the forefront of what we're pushing as we're working to get our new youth librarians trained and ready to do summer reading. So,
Taylor, how do you market this?
So we have Facebook posts that will go out. We do have a whole web page for it. Again, we haven't been pushing it hard because our youth librarians, we haven't. Turnover. We've had a lot of new youth librarian faces, and so we need them doing story times and getting ready for summer reading, and we just want to make sure that they're comfortable explaining and talking about the challenge before I put out massive press releases and posts on Facebook, and then people come running and storming in the doors to do things, and staff are like, oh, we need a little more information. So I try to balance that one for them.
Very good. Understandable.
Yes. So in our last meeting, we talked about Patron Point, which is our emails and notices system. We did do that update. It launched on April 2nd. We were actually ready to launch it on the Tuesday of that week, but Tuesday of that week was April Fool's Day, and we said maybe we shouldn't launch a new system on April Fool's Day. We'll move it to Wednesday.
Chicken.
What? Look, Monday launches are never good. Tuesday, April Fool's Day sounded like a horrible plan. We went with Wednesday. It was a happy medium for everyone. So we have heard from our staff and our friends and patrons that the texts that they're receiving, the emails they're receiving are coming through beautifully. They're getting their notices, and they are able to kind of interact in a little bit of an easier fashion than they had been able to with our previous system. We can monitor the open rates, which is just how many people are opening emails as we're sending them. We have seen a very high percentage, over 50% of those emails are being opened, which is a great number. That is much higher than the average percentage of an open rate for an email. And we can also see that renewals are increasing. So when we send an email that says, hey, your book is due in 3 days, do you want to renew it? we can see that they are clicking in to go renew their titles, and then we're not having those overdue notices sending as frequently. So we are hopeful that as we continue to use additional features within this product, that we will see as good of a response. So that has been a great addition. Today is Earth Day, and we have our seed libraries to talk to you about a little bit. So all of you received some seed packets. You received corn and zinnias because those are in season. I am not a gardener. I went to our person who runs the seed library at the branch, and she told me what to give you. And so I handed those out. So our seed libraries first opened at the Lakes Region branch in April of 2022 on Earth Day. Since then, we have been able to hand out more than 35,000 seed packets to the community. And Floral City is launching and opening theirs today. So I've received pictures last night from staff of they were setting up their seed library. They have a propagation station, so they are garden people over there, and there's little options. They were explaining it all to me over the phone. I said, please send me pictures. It sounds fantastic. I, again, am not the gardener. But they're very excited, and so that leaves all 5 of our branches having seed libraries. The seed library in the picture is from our Homosassa branch, and they were actually our second one to open. In last year alone, we did more than 20,000 seed packets checked out. You can check out up to 4 per person per day. People do take great joy in bringing us pictures of their seeds that they have grown, giving us updates on what they're growing as they're coming in to do things. And so we have had fantastic local businesses and partners work with us to make sure we get seeds. The Walmart of Homosassa has been phenomenal the last couple of years. I will usually sometime in the spring get a phone call, and they're like, hey, we have seeds for you. Can you come get them? And when they say seeds, it's not just a couple of packets of seeds. It's boxes of seeds, like large boxes, plural, of seeds that staff go and pick up, and then they're like, this is a lot of seeds. This should hopefully last us for the next year. So we see a lot of that. Our staff members who work within our seed libraries work very hard to rotate through the seeds to make sure that seasonally appropriate seeds are available within the libraries, and it's not things that, hey, you should have planted this in December, still out in June. So they work very hard to do that. We find people who know seeds and gardens who run those. So also in front of you, you have some of our summer reading information. So the theme for this year for our summer reading program is Brush Up on Books, where stories and art collide. And so our youth librarians have been working to find artists and illustrators and ways that you see art in nature and ways to find books and art and literally bringing them in. You'll see that in some of the programs that are listed in our calendars. But just a few important dates for you all to note. Our first day to log reading will be June 1st. That is a Sunday. We have started our June 1st reading dates for the last couple of years, and we said, let's stick to it. It's becoming a routine for them. We are holding off on doing our kickoff until June 7th. Our students don't get out of school until that very last Friday of May, right after Memorial Day. And we know our families and we know our parents, and they need a couple of days to decompress from the school year. And so we, instead of doing kickoff right away that last Saturday of May, we said we're going to hold off. We're going to let them have those couple of days that they need, and then we will start off our programming and everything on June 7th with the kickoff at Central, and then June 9th is our first day of programming that Monday. And so you'll see through all of our calendars, there are programs every day for kids and tweens and teens. We also include on there all of our story time, so Books and Babies and Little Learners, and then Tiny Tales at our Floral City branch. You will see a number of programs that include partnerships with our UF IFAS Extension Office. This is the second summer we are partnering with them to provide programming at every branch. And within our 4-H Extension Office, they are coming in to 2 of our branches and doing 3 weeks of programming. They are doing an activity that I think is with leather making. So they're always finding a way to tie ag and all of their 4-H things back into, look, it's not my realm, okay?
Couldn't tell.
It's fine. all of the 4-H stuff back into what they're doing and what they're teaching. And so they found ways to make it art related. So we were pretty excited about that.
Excellent.
We have reading incentives that are once again being donated by local businesses in the community, and our Reading with the Rays program is returning. There is a small change that the Rays are making this year with the program. In years past, we have been able to offer vouchers as incentives, as the final incentive to read around the bases. Unfortunately, as we know, the Rays are not playing at the Trop this year, and there is a limited amount of seating at Steinbrenner, and so they are not able to provide vouchers for our students this year. But everything that we've heard from the program is that they're hoping to have a better option to bring that back for the next year. So, but they still have activities and little prizes and things for them as they read their way around the bases. But as we know, we can't fight hurricanes. So our summer reading program is there. And then you also have the RAC card. So that's the little kind of 4x8 card that went with your calendars. And so that card is actually being sent out to all of our elementary schools. So all of the students K through 5 in all of our public schools and private schools will receive those cards. We are working with our youth librarians in the first week of May to get those out to our schools so that they can be distributed to our families. And then we always kind of have a deadline of right before Easter to have our promotional items ready for summer reading. The last few years, we have attended the glow-in-the-dark egg hunt that Parks and Recreation has been putting on, and that was the #1 thing that was requested the very first year we attended. And so we said, okay, we will make sure all of our calendars and things are ready so parents who are wanting information about summer reading can get that into their hands. So they were ready right in time. Our staff who attended said they handed out hundreds of calendars. Like that's the plan. So just a couple of upcoming dates for you. Our Volunteer Appreciation and Awards event is this Saturday on April the 26th at the Central Ridge Community Center in Beverly Hills. You all should have received your invitations. If for some reason you all cannot make it, just please let us know after the meeting and we will be happy to adjust the RSVPs. All of our library branches will be closed on Friday, May the 2nd for our annual staff training day. This was a staff training day that we were supposed to have back in October, but some hurricanes and a branch that wasn't finished yet due to hurricanes kind of pushed our date back to May 2nd, and so we will all be getting together as a staff to kind of do some training and team building and all of those fun things. And then our branches will all be closed as well on May the 26th for Memorial Day. So just some dates to note for the next couple of weeks. And that is everything I had.
All right.
Any questions? Anything else? I think you all asked them while we were talking.
I do want to say this D'Artagnan kid, man, we've heard his name quite a few. First of all, what a cool name. Second of all, man, props off to him. I would love to meet him. That would be awesome. I'm sure. Well, when you read a lot, you've got a lot of words. So, all right.
That was my fault.
So next would be branch updates, correct?
Yep. We kind of combined those, I believe, into Taylor's update. So you got.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
I see that. Okay. All right. So now, seeing there's no new or old business, rather, we will move on to new business, beginning with the booked 2026 event.
All right, thank you, Chair. So booked, we just had booked in end of February of this year. We're already looking ahead to 2026 for our next booked event. So we have on our calendars already kind of penciled in as February 28th as our next event for booked. And at this previous booked, our final total was just over $22,000. So you'll see it up there on the screen. $22,220.08 was our final number after expenses. That was our net. Do want to give a huge thank you to all of our volunteers and staff who worked very hard on putting this event together. It was a wonderful event. And I also want to give a special thank you to Bob, who was our chair for this event, our first event back. It was a huge goal of mine and this board to bring back fundraising for our renovation and large capital improvement projects, especially having spent the Lakes Region funding, and then also now spending money on Coastal Region to get those renovations to occur. So Bob jumped right in and was right there with me helping to figure out how we can get this event relaunched. We went to a lot of businesses together. Bob championed this event to several communities, all of his friends. He drove ticket sales, had ideas, was just a wonderful person to work with as chair of this. So as we look forward to 2026,
Excuse me for 1 second.
Go ahead, Bob.
You omitted again 1,000 hours that our committee spent, many of whom are here today, and they were the ones that really made it work. Thank you.
Absolutely, yes. Everyone, staff and volunteers pitched in and made something that we hadn't had in several years, brought it back, raised more money than we had in previous years, and really got, I think, a lot more excitement driven about the library and really showing off that renovation to kind of help us carry forward for future projects. So I was very proud to see that come back and to have everybody working together on that. And good things for next year, we're working to already strengthen that kind of communication and commitment from all of our volunteers and some of our staff to really bring that forward. So for this next year's event, I do have penciled in for the 28th. I don't really need much yet in terms of, typically we ask for funding requests to be able to cover some expenses. We're not really at that point yet, but what I'd like to do is see if we can get, kind of moving this forward so we can get some dates together and get a committee formed again, is a chair for this event again this year. It's up to the board who you'd like to have. Certainly, I would like some, if possible, continuity there, yes. So I'm going to bring back a lot of the same staff and volunteers that were part of that. And if possible, continuity with this board would be great as well.
So if it's appropriate at this time, I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to appoint or nominate, if he would accept, Mr. Bramlett as the committee chair. And then between Mr. Bramlett and Mr. Chang, you can form the committee with whom you feel is appropriate. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor? Or what? Would you like to discuss it? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
I'll abstain.
Got it.
But thank you. I'll abstain.
All right, so let it be noted that Mr. Bramlett has been appointed as the chair with the direction to the committee with Director Chang and Mr. Bramlett to put together that committee.
All right, thank you, Chair.
Next, we have H2 on new business, and this is a presentation by Director Chang for the restricted access card. And again, just not going to go into a lot of details over that. Previous meeting in February, we addressed some of these concerns. Mrs. Ramlow came up with an idea of being able to put these restrictions on the card. Director Chang actually and his staff did some research, and they found a tool that would fit that request, and you take it from there.
All right, thank you, Chair. Okay, so as the Chair said, this idea has kind of been bouncing around for a little while in various forms. I've been talking about it with some staff behind the scenes about how this would look, what we could do, and there's always been some big hurdles in the way of this for us. One being the technical aspect: how do we pull this off to make it consistent, easy enough for staff to have a consistent rule with this? What kind of parameters does our system allow us to put in place? What can we do there? The second piece that I'm very cautious about and want to make sure that we kind of really looked at was, I don't want to make it harder for parents or for children to be able to access materials, to be able to read. Literacy is something that's very important, especially in our libraries. Early literacy is something that we really want to help our families with. We know they're very important as good markers for success in schools. So that was always on my mind, as well as making sure that anything that we're doing doesn't reduce kids wanting to read or coming in to read or being able to get books. And I think the solution that I'm going to present, that we're moving forward with, kind of balances those things. So I also looked into several different suggestions that had come up over the last couple months from the board. A couple of them, we talked about labeling materials. Good idea on the surface, but challenge with that one is I found that it didn't really have an end. we'd have to put multiple labels on multiple books if they fell in different categories, and we'd be constantly doing that. A very, very staff-intensive process, and one, again, that I don't think we would truly get to the end of. We wouldn't be able to really say, okay, we've labeled everything in the, in this fashion, because, like I said, multiple books can have multiple labels. Notes in individual records, this one was also brought up. And again, this is a very staff-intensive process. We can put notes in patrons' records, and we do sometimes. Usually it's to say, please get a new phone number or get a new contact information for that person. Challenge with notes is they don't really pop up on the screen, they're just there as just a little side note on somebody's account. So if it gets missed by staff, which sometimes it does, we wouldn't know that that restriction, that parameter was in place for that particular child. It's also very subjective in that regard, that if a parent comes in and says, I want my child to be able to read this, but they can't read this author, again, it becomes, there's so many rules and so many pieces, how do we ever get that standardized and get that right for everyone the best fit? I also want to go over, I did look at movie ratings as well, because there was some question over the last couple months about, why aren't books rated like movies? Why can't we do that? So I dug pretty heavily into that to see kind of how all that worked, what people were doing with those. Do other libraries do that? How does the movie rating system work? So what I came kind of to a conclusion with that was that movie ratings are sort of done on a national scale. So they're done through the Motion Picture Association, and they get all the different kind of, not movie publishers, but industry people. They get, Paramount, they get Disney, they get all these different groups together, and they kind of form a committee, and they agree on these ratings. So for our perspective, I couldn't see a way that we could necessarily do that at a very local level if it's done at a national level, where it would be all the publishers essentially getting together and making those determinations as far as what rating categories like that. And then through that, I also learned that they did a big survey through the Motion Picture Association, and they said that 95% of parents look up information or reviews on a movie before they show it to their child. So I think there is already a lot of parental guidance in things. I think that, I want to make sure we're giving credit to parents that they do research, they do look up things, whether it's a movie or it's a book, they are looking at those things. And then what I found interesting with this is 86% of parents that they surveyed agreed that movie ratings were correct, 14% disagreed. So no matter what we do here, no matter what path we go forward, I think there's always going to be some conflict there. We're never going to hit 100%. I think that's important to kind of keep in mind. So with this Children's Restricted Access Card, the idea here is when a parent brings their child to the library, if they want to sign up for a library card for their child and only their child, they'll be given the library application. This is all still a work in progress, by the way. I'm still kind of refining this, but I wanted to bring it to you all today so you could see where I'm heading with this. So they bring their child to the library. They get their library card application. It's going to have two options. They can get what's now our kind of regular or standard card, or they can choose this Children's Restricted Access Card for their child. So again, entirely up to the parent as to which one. It's not the library saying you need this particular card. We're not blanket making everybody get this particular card. It's up to that individual parent what they decide for their family. So they can fill out the form and select the card that they want. And if a parent has a child that they already have a library card, they can switch that card if they wish. So I have 2 children. My kids have the standard regular library card now. If I wished, when we launched this card, I could go to the library and I could have my card for my children switched over to the restricted access card if I wished. If I find that I have this restricted access card and it doesn't allow me to do everything, or it doesn't allow my child to do the things I want them to do, I can switch back to the regular card. So we'll switch back and forth. It's going to be a different card. They'll actually get a physical card that will be different than our standard card is now.
Very cool.
So along with this, go next. So what this card will do, if that parent chooses, it will restrict access to checkouts of materials of everything except for things in the juvenile section and kind of below. So if a parent gets this card for their child, let's say their child is 7 years old, they want their kid to have some more restrictions. They can check out picture books, easy readers, nonfiction, juvenile fiction, which are chapter books, juvenile graphic novels, juvenile nonfiction, juvenile CDs, juvenile DVDs, and then our STEM kits that we created last year. So they'll have access to all these materials with that card. It will just block them from checking out adult materials and young adult materials. Now, I will say that when I say it blocks them from checking them out, it will actually, when you scan the card, if somebody brings up a book that's in the adult section with this card, it will flash a warning and say, you know, this book you can't check out, essentially. That does not stop a child, I will just go ahead and say, it does not stop them from being able to go in the library and access any section they want. If a kid comes in and they want to go in the reference section and look at a reference book, if the parent, we're assuming the parent is giving them, you know, that discretion. It's not on us to determine where your kid goes in the library. But if a child goes there, picks up a book, looks at it while they're in the library, that's entirely a parent discussion. But as far as the checkout, if they get this card, that's where our staff will be able to limit that access in terms of taking a book home. Okay, go to the next. All right, so what this card will block access to, so it's going to block access to all other collections. It's going to also block public computers, internet access. One of the big things that I hear over and over again over the last year is, you know, kids can get things on the internet that's way worse than what's in a book. You know, if that is true, if that's the case, I believe that this card, as far as limiting access, if you are concerned about what your child is getting, you probably are also concerned about the access of the internet as well for your child. So we're going ahead and limiting that. It's also going to stop interlibrary loans as well. Overdrive and Libby, so any digital resources, our electronic resources, our Canopy streaming service, everything digital would be restricted on this card if a parent chooses that. And I want to stress that it's up to the parent to really make that determination to get this card or not.
Does that affect our Bean Stack then?
No, they'd still be able to access Beanstack.
Okay.
Yep, because Beanstack is, they'd be able to sign in, they're logging minutes or putting
Okay.
titles in. It's not, there's no content on there for them to access.
Okay.
Now, one question
Sure.
on, so I do know, in the children's section, there are computers set aside. Now, what about those computers?
So they'd be free to use those computers, yes,
Okay.
just not our public computers in the main area.
it.
Again, if a parent makes that decision. Right now, a child can use those computers if they have a regular library card, and they still would remain that.
And I do know that on the current library card, you have parents have the capabilities of looking at their children's checkout history. We would still have that same.
Yes, yep, all of that would still remain. The parent has, kind of as you said, has always had the ability to look at what their child has. They have the ability to guide their child's reading. We prefer that. We don't want to be in the business of telling, you know, children read all of these books. It's really,
Right.
even with like the 1,000 books before kindergarten is a good example. We're not saying what book you read, we're just saying we want you to read 1,000 books. You know, that's kind of our involvement, is we want you to read. The parent and that child, that family, whoever it is, makes that determination for their family. This, I think, just gives them a little bit more of a clear guideline there that they can say, I want my child only to have these things. And if they change their mind or find it doesn't fit what their need is, they can again change it.
You still continuing with the presentation? I'm sorry.
Oh, you're fine. I'll make sure I have
Kind of
everything here.
interrupted you.
No, you're good. You have a question, Burke? Okay, so we are still working on this card. I am still working out some of those details. We're doing a lot of behind-the-scenes adjusting and testing to make sure this does work. So we're looking at rolling this out by the end of the year in 2025. So by December of this year, we should have this ready to go. If we can get it done early, I would love that, but chances are it's going to be close to the end of the year given some other projects we have and then some other hurdles that we're doing. So on the slide, you'll see we're doing some collection mapping. So we're having to adjust how our collection is in our computer system. Our checkout rules, access levels need to be created to be able to implement this new card. We've got to work with some of our vendors to set up different access levels for their products as well. We've done some early testing, seems to be on the right track, but again, we're going to do more thorough testing before we make this go live. We also do need to work with staff on training, implementation, and rollout of this. We've got to update some procedures and forms as well, like our new library card application will have to have this new restricted card option for parents. We're designing a new library card, and we do have to purchase those new library cards as well for those families that would like that card.
Okay.
And then a question that does sometimes come up is how do people know about what we're doing? So to kind of clear that up a little bit, so what we're going to do with this is we're going to be updating that library card application. It's going to have those two defined sections. We are going to have signs at our checkout or circulation desks so parents can see those. We're also going to release some press release. We're going to do some social media coverage on our website Our digital displays will also have this information on there, so parents will know that this card is now available should they wish to get it for their child. Again, if they don't want this card, they don't have to have it. You can have the regular standard library card for your family if you wish. This just gives you that other option should you decide that you want a little bit more restriction. Yeah. Okay. Any questions for me on this?
Are we the first in the area to implement something or test something like this?
No, there are other libraries that do offer something similar. They have different levels of cards. I know Marion has something, Hillsborough County does as well, but it's just finding out what fits for our system. Everybody has a different kind of software that they use, and it's how does it work with our software versus what they're able to do and what fits for their limits. This is something that I think other libraries, if they haven't already started, may be looking towards as well.
Nora, you have any more questions?
No, excellent job. Thank you for the work behind the scenes, Adam.
Thank you.
Katie?
No, I think you've done an excellent job, and I'd have to say that I agree with the McClintocks that parents do, and they do have, and they should have the right to restrict access. I don't think this is the way to do it, but I appreciate the work that you've put into it.
I want to say, first of all, number one, as a parent, this follows, in my opinion, the kind of like the guidelines that we use in the with Hulu and Disney Plus even, which is insane that has access to some pretty heavy stuff. It does. So all of those have to be restricted. And at my house, there's a certain password that they do not know that prevents them from doing that. And that gives me as the parent the option. I also like the fact because two of my concerns, my two main concerns were this with regards to this. First of all, when Mrs. Ramlow brought this up last meeting, I said, okay, there's an idea. And of course, you know, she would know better than most of us on this board that would be available. But the main thing was, number one, I realize that library staff already do a tremendous amount of work. I also understand that you are in the process of another remodel and wrapping up one remodel. And I realize that, you know, it's not just like you can make time. That's a funny saying that we like to say, but it's not exactly. So I really was concerned about the amount of effort it would take for library staff to do what was necessary. I do believe there was definitely a need for something like this, but it appears that you have found what looks like to be, and this word is almost too cliche, a happy medium. The other thing my concern is, you know, I parent one way, and though I very much have a great, sincere conviction about how I personally parent, and obviously I feel like I parent the right way. You know, I think we probably all do that. I know I'm not perfect, and specifically even in my parenting. However, I do believe, you know, that we should not necessarily be legislating how other parents parent, you know, unless we get into some other obvious things. So if a parent wants their child to read whatever throughout the library, they can have the regular traditional library card, and that is entirely up to the parent. You know, I do believe that we need to be mindful that it's the parent's job to raise the children. And, you know, I believe this, and I know people have mentioned religious things. I believe that I am the one who will give an account for my children. You know, and, you know, if my child accesses certain things that are harmful, weapons or other devices, and they use it on others, I am the one that faces the results of that. So I believe this is definitely, and again, I will use the same cliche again, it is somewhat of a happy medium. I realize we can't please everybody, and I've learned a long time ago that that's a good way to stay up all night trying to please everybody. So I've just made a mission to please no one. No, I'm just kidding. But I think this is a great, number one, again, I want to echo the sentiment stated already. Director Chang, you and your staff, great job. I'm sure it has not been without difficulty, but great job. And I'm sure the difficulty's not done, but I feel like the community appreciates it.
Yes.
As a whole. And so that's what I would like to say, and then we'll entertain whether we have a motion or not later in just a moment.
Okay, I actually enjoyed our conversation outside of the meeting, and so I had a little bit of a heads up, and I still feel that a little bit of, well, maybe a lot of staff prep ahead of time widely beats out staff time daily entering conditions on their cards and things like that. So I think in that way, it's more staff efficient, while still giving the parents the choice to regulate what their children can have access to. And great job, and thank you so much.
I agree with all of the sentiments that we've heard here. I do think you've found a happy medium. I do like that it's a shared event between parents and library, that it's a shared responsibility. I think that's as it should be. I appreciate all your help, and I think it'll be successful.
Yeah, I don't think you can please everyone all the time. Adam, I think it's a pretty fair compromise, what you've done. The chairman's covered just about everything on the subject. How much more time do you need to develop the program, finish it?
So we are honestly several months away from being ready to go, because it is, the bulk of it is mapping and redefining our collection as what the rules are. It's a very kind of behind the scenes technical process, but right now, if you were to look at most of our materials that are books in the collection, they're just classed as book. They don't have their own kind of rule or tag to them. They're called books. So if you get a library card and you want to check out a book, it just lets you do that. We now have to go back and name them separate things, like we have to call this a picture book. We have to specifically go in and say each of these categories now exist at a very core level for those, to be able to put those limits on that card, to say you can check out this, this, and this, but not these other things. Right now, it's if you have a library card, you can check out books, which worked for us for many years, but defining this a little bit is gonna give us a little more flexibility there.
So each card that each child gets will specifically say, well, you can check out up to a certain level, and then beyond that, you can't?
Yes.
So if you were 17, you could go all the way to 17-year-olds, but someone 8 years old?
No, this is again kind of the first steps to this, to see how this all works, and if it does meet the needs that that parents want, it will just restrict everything except for those J materials. So as you age, so if a kid is 16, this is up to the parent. Again, this isn't something I'm telling them yes or no to, but that card will be locked at juvenile if you are 16 and your parent decides not to give you further access. That's the parent's call there. There isn't really that we could see a way to bump that up yet. We haven't found a way to do that. So as of now, that's the direction we're going to head in, where that card is locked only to the things I outlined there, and it never changes unless that parent opts to get a different card for their child.
One thing I would caution all of us about is, having participated in rollouts of various programs and stuff like that from a business, never from a library, mistakes will happen. And if we go back to what I think just about everybody has talked about, the ultimate responsibility lays with the parents. And so, is there a book that may get misclassified at one point or the other? You think about how many books we have. Maybe. Is there going to be a meltdown where a young person tries to come in and take out a book that they aren't authorized to take out? Probably. And how do we deal with all these things? It kind of comes back to the parent. We're trying to assist people here, but is this going to be 100% accurate, successful? We hope so, but I just think we need to kind of caution people, especially in the rollout phases of it.
Great point.
Yes, absolutely right, Bob. I believe that we are trying to make this as successful as possible. We are going to act in good faith that we are trying to, to have, if a parent has that card, they want to have that, we are going to try to make sure that everything is as it should be, but there are going to be the occasional mistake, I'm sure. But it's all done in, we're trying to operate in good faith with that.
Okay, so everyone had time to talk? Everybody good? Okay, so just for clarification, this is a new business item. However, again, we serve as a library advisory council. We advise the director, we advise the county commission as to what we believe is appropriate. This is a decision that you have made in-house, correct?
Correct.
So this is a decision you're moving forward with?
Correct.
So based upon that, there is no motion necessary. Does that make sense? If you would like to make a motion, we certainly will entertain it. I would just say that would require, of course, a second. That would require, again, discussion among the board again and open to public, and then we would go for a vote. A motion is not necessarily going to sway yes or no for Director Chang. It could, I guess, but that is a decision that Director Chang and his staff have already made. Does that make sense? Would anyone like to make a motion, or would you like to move on to the next item?
Move on.
Everybody good? Okay. All right, so we're going to move on to H2, which is, H3, my apologies. And that is the material shelving location presentation. Director Chang, you have the floor.
All right. Thank you, Chair. All right. So this one has been kind of, again, coming up for the last several months, if not the last year, about kind of materials, where they are, how they're shelved, how they're bought, all those kind of things. So I was trying to come up with a little bit more information for you all to give you a little more background of how we're getting our materials or how things end up in certain areas. So what I'm going to tell you is there is no absolute black and white rule of where something is shelved. I know that in a couple previous discussions I've had with some of the board, we're looking for these hard rules that say, it hits this threshold, it changes and goes to this area. It's always been something subjective as far as where something is going to fit. We do our with best intentions to put it in a place where we feel it should go. Again, I talked a little about earlier, the Movie Association has their rating system for things. That doesn't exist for books. And again, if it did, it would most likely be set at a national level, not at a local level, as far as where those parameters lie, as with movies. So authors, publishers, distributors, retailers do place those categories and locations for books. They start that, they make that determination. And I believe they make that based on their intended audience, where it's going to get the most visibility, and where it's going to make the most money. When authors, they're out there to, obviously they want to sell their book. So that's kind of where that's kind of looked at from me. So we get books that come predefined by our vendor typically. We'll look for a set of books, whether it's adult books, whether it's books for 0 through 17. We'll run a search for that, and then it will populate all these new books that are coming out under those kind of headings. So if we're looking for 0 to 17, we'll get a list of books for that section. So when we buy a book, it comes from a certain section, so it says it's a picture book, it says it's a young adult. That doesn't necessarily mean that it has to stay in that location when we get it. When we get the books in, staff take a look at it. If we feel that it should move to a different classification, we would then move it. A lot of times it does stay where it is, because I will tell you, a lot of the information that we gather here in the meetings and questions is, things are in the wrong places, people can access certain things, but I would honestly say the work that the staff do and reviewing and everything, the hard work that goes into this, I would say 99% of the time our books are in the right section. there is always going to be, as Bob said, that little bit of error there. And in our case, there is always one or two that we do take another look at, especially if a patron would submit that request for reconsideration form. If they have an objection or an issue with a book in a certain section, they have the ability to fill that form out, then we review that particular area. But for the most part, about 99% of the time, we know where a book should go within a few minutes of looking at that book. And then, of course, we do have the ability to review those materials, should we need to. So I do have some examples of books if anybody, like to see kind of some new books that we recently got in, but they're quick to identify. Can I have those for a second, Caitlin? Where a lot of these books would get placed. So like this one, definitely a picture book. Looking at the cover, we don't always judge a book by its cover necessarily, but you go in and you look at the book, you see the pictures, you see the large print, you see that it's definitely a kid's picture book. Same thing with an adult book. When we order books, Stuart Woods, best-selling author, typically writes for adults. You kind of get an idea this is going to be a book that will be in the adult section. We have a juvenile book, so this is kind of for that middle grade. It's a chapter book. Inside it's got larger print. It still have some different graphics in there. And then when you read the description, you get the idea kind of where this is intended to go. The one that gets a lot of the attention has been typically our young adult section. We talked about that 12 to 18, then going to 15 to 18 range. This is an example of a young adult book that we recently purchased. By looking at it, kind of can tell from the cover that, that is going to lean more towards a younger audience or that young adult audience. Reading the description inside also gives you further information about the age of the main character, their 16-year-old, and kind of solving a murder mystery. So this is kind of a representation of what we do see as far as our books when they come in. So like I said, for the most part, we can tell where a book is going based on what the publisher's already given us. These are all the categories that the publisher provided. We look at them, we review them. We come to the same conclusion for the most part that vendor has given us. I can tell you that books are reviewed by 3 staff as they come in. So they're getting ordered, they're getting looked at, and they're getting looked at again to make sure that we aren't having a wide discrepancy of a book in a place that maybe people don't always agree with. We try to make sure that we are putting those checks in place. It is staff intensive, but it's certainly something that we are working on and making sure that we do take that time to avoid any potential issues, especially putting this new card in place. We want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence to make sure that things are in the appropriate sections as we feel. So with that, as far as shelving locations, again, just want to highlight that our library is there for everybody in the community. It's serving everybody. We have a diverse set of experiences in our community as far as what kind of books should be in our library, so we always want to make sure we have a broad range of things, but that do typically circulate. Up until about February, we've had just over 200,000 items checked out this year. Young adult is one that, again, I feel like is the most talked about for us. That accounts for 5,000 of our checkouts out of those 200,000. So about 2% of all checkouts is young adult typically each year. So it's a small portion. And then for our children's books, those picture books, those juvenile materials, it's over 40,000 of those 200,000 right now. So we do have a high number of checkouts in those areas, and not a whole lot of, again, young adult circulation, but 5,000 is typically young adults aren't coming in reading books for the most part. I hate to say that, but that's where we lose a lot of that audience. They get involved in sports, they get jobs, there's other things going on in their lives that they don't always come back to our library.
Move away.
Yep. And kids that do come in the library, I will say that we do have a lot of teens that do come in our library, but they come in to volunteer because they're getting scholarship hours. At one of our libraries, they have what's called a study cafe where kids come in and study after school. So they are coming into our libraries. They may not be checking out our books, but they are coming, engaging with our staff, and participating in activities. Right. So with our materials, where we shelve them as far as young adult, I'm kind of focusing on that one because I believe that's where we're going to be looking at the most, or that's where the most concern is. Content really plays a larger role in what's in those books. Again, we're 15 to 18. When we're getting a book from a publisher, they're saying 12 to 18. So content in these young adult books for us, they're heavier topics because they are moving into kind of that adulthood. So it's bullying, college, death, drugs, grief, high school, physical relationships, romance, social issues, violence, some strong language. All of that is going to be potentially prevalent in some of these materials. It's going to appear. This is not in any way different than what you're going to see in a TV show. There's a lot of this kind of stuff that you're going to see that is that kind of PG-13 kind of classification for the most part. Age of character I mentioned with that young adult book. We are looking at kind of the main character of the book. They're typically going to be 14 to 19 in those books. Kids that are of that age are going to want to read about kids of similar age for the most part. They're written for teens. They're written about teens, typically is what is in that young adult section. We say 14 to 19, but if there is no age, we're looking at context as far as where that child may be in school. So if they're in high school, that's going to lend itself more to a young adult audience than it would a younger audience. Even early college is still going to be in this section because there are some kids that are in that age when they graduate high school early, or they have an early or late birthday. They're 17, they're 18 when they're in college, so it still fits in that kind of realm. But we do take a look at that. And we always try to make sure that we're looking for kind of best placements. And like I said, we will adjust if someone has a specific concern. So, I would say that if somebody has a book that they particularly feel, isn't in the appropriate section, there's always a form that they can fill out and address specifics of that material, and we'll certainly take a look as to do we need to do anything with that particular material. So I hope that kind of helped shed a little bit of light on what goes in. I know, again, I focus more on the young adult, but I have these books if anybody would like to take a look at them and kind of, see more of that. But I'd be happy to talk more about it if you have questions, or if you want to, reach me after the meeting, we can also have a further discussion as well.
So first of all, thank you. That's a lot of information. I assume you got most of that on the minutes. It would be nice to have that as a quick reference, all of that you had. I don't know if that's possible,
Sure.
or whatever the case is. So just my opinion is, as far as, library staff, Director Chang, in my opinion, I feel like you all are doing the best you can with what resources and information you have. I do believe that, this is just my personal opinion, I don't like the fact that a young adult classification is 15 to 18. I appreciate the movement that you all have made in that thing. That's not your fault. That's from a wider perspective, among publishers and so on, that, that's generally the case. That's the young adult section. I just feel, that when we're talking about in just general, in the general way we talk about young adults, in my opinion, are more 18 to 30 range, but that's not a, listen. You guys are making us all feel old.
So I'm just a regular adult now,
Yeah.
I'm not aged.
Yeah. I'll say, and this is just, I'll give a background to that. In the church world, there is a classification of ministry called young adults, and the classification for ministry among young adults is 18 to 30. So maybe that help you understand why that defines that age.
I think another term for 18 to 30 is now new adults. And so it's like where the new term has come out, adulting. Mm-hmm. And I have a son who's 24 and a daughter who's 19. And I would definitely consider them new adults. Yeah. They're not yet experienced in adulting, really. And there's other things that other children may have going on as far as like neurodivergencies and things like that basically would determine where they actually fall in whether they're new adult, young adult, or still children. So
Yes. And so just from a basic mental health perspective, the frontal lobe is not developed until 25, around 27 for some. So, I mean, that's the basis of logic and reason. So that's just science. However, I realize that there is definitely a precedent that has been the precedent for so long for that being the case. So my point is, as far as with regards to our library system, I think you all are doing the very best you possibly can with the information you have. I am sure that there is always room for improvement. I do know that. Now, you mentioned that a lot of the way you classify books is based upon your in-house standards, correct? So I do know that there is a certain program that you use to purchase, I believe, all of your books, but
The majority, yes.
The majority. Now, on that program, they have a classification. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. Now, would you say that that classification is a little more broader than what your classification would be?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So based upon you're getting that, and then you are also making a second step in the process to try to say, okay, does that fit our needs?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have any questions, comments, or even any motions you can?
Well, I have a comment. I really appreciate how well you and your staff have responded to the various discussions about classification of materials, to parent choice and control, really. And so I really appreciate how much you have listened to your community.
Right. Anyone else? Board? Everybody good? All right. Let's move on to H4, U.S. Family Foundation Status Report.
Okay, so in your, you should have gotten an updated report from the foundation. It is, it should be one of the last pages, if not the last page. And this runs a little bit behind because this ends in the December 31st, so we haven't gotten a new statement yet. What we have here is our total net assets are $333,000 in the U.S. Family Foundation account.
Okay.
So that will go up slightly because we haven't added all the booked funding in there yet, or any interest earned, or any other contributions.
Very
But
cool.
it's right around $333,000 as of December.
Okay. Very cool. And then the next one, this is for the 12 months of contributions and expenses. Okay. So change in net assets was the negative 197, and that was, of course, the coastal region.
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry? No, that one would be for lakes regions in the last, or the coastal regions for the last 12 months.
Okay.
Lakes would have been the previous 12 months.
Gotcha.
Just as a comment, if you take at the last sheet of our handout here, it talks about the revenues from contributions, book investment gain, capital gains, interest and dividends. Capital gains, I think for the 12 months was $8,000. Okay. So that, to me, when I see that number for the whole year, especially when we are, throughout the whole year, the average balance would have been more than the 300. It would have been more like 600. So they are investing, in my mind, in some pretty conservative investments, more like CDs, treasuries, stuff like that, as opposed to stocks and things like that. So when we get our next report, especially given the market recently, where you see the capital gains, that number could be a negative number.
Right, correct.
And so that will decrease, have a negative impact on the amount that we see. And then, do we get these quarterly, Andrew?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so that'll depend. I mean, yeah, for the first quarter, I would say there would definitely be a negative. But
That's why we have our investment advisory group. When I looked at it, like if you look in your book, there's like a dozen or so individuals.
Right.
Who all look to be pretty sophisticated to me, who are there managing. But what they will be doing is they're gonna be setting, do we have 20% in CDs? Do we have 80% in the market? And your allocations is really what they are responsible for. And then whoever has got the money, they adhere to that. But notwithstanding all of that, the next time we get a report, I will be surprised if there's a capital gain as opposed to a capital loss.
right. And that's very possible. I will say, and I don't have the exact details, I do know that the market with particular to this particular fund, the U.S. Family Foundation Fund, with regards to the library, pre-2020, there was quite a bit of increase. You know, it grew, and no dispersions were made. They didn't. There was no major purchases, reimprove, that kind of thing of any significant value. And unfortunately, that was kind of wiped out during the previous 4 years. And we finally, when it started to come back up, we approved the lakes and the coastal. So ideally, we will see a continuation of the gains. I do realize the first quarter of this year, probably not so much, but it is the stock market. So things will change. And as it does, we'll do our very best to make wise investments on our end, that is, in such as remodels and so on. And we're going to do our best to raise money, right? All right. Anybody else? Good. All right, Director Chang, where are we at? I think we are board member updates. Anyone have any board member updates?
I have a question. According to page 4 of our former notes, at the very top, it says, Lenora Nelson presented a motion to create a guidelines for the board to use while reviewing books to determine suggested age restrictions, age section placement of the book. And Justin suggested the motion be included in the next meeting agenda. Did we include that in this agenda?
So I'll just bring some clarification to that. So that would, under, I believe Director Chang, and I don't mean to speak for you, but I believe that is what he was doing with the last update, just before we're talking about the placement and so on. And just for clarification, sometimes in this meeting, and minutes are at very best almost accurate. And so that's why sometimes when we produce amendments or we want something put down for new business, it's always good to go after the fact and make a direct email to Director Chang or a phone call or whatever, say, hey, this is exactly what I was talking about when I do that, because that stuff can be missed. If you feel that it was not to what you were asking, then we can always add that to the next meeting. There's nothing wrong if you and I'll just clarify this, as a board member, you can request anything to be added to the agenda within reason. If you request or make the request to Director Chang. But if you feel that issue was not addressed, and in full disclosure, Mrs. Nelson, I barely remember that. I would have to watch and see exactly what happened. But if you feel that the issue you raised was not addressed, then by all means, let's make sure we make, email or call Director Chang, and that way we can handle it at the next meeting. I feel, and again, I don't want to speak for you. You please speak if you think otherwise. I feel that the placement and how collections are classified, I feel that he thought that was the addressing of what the issue you raised was. If it wasn't, then we need to make sure we get that taken care of.
Yes, no, for clarification, it was not. It was brought up through the Board of County Commissioners. One of the things that happened with our replacement was that she had not reviewed a book, and that was part of her job that she had been asked to do. And then I brought up the fact I was not able to be here due to the death of my mother, and I said, I was concerned, as a teacher, I have a rubric, and when I grade written work or book reports or whatever, I have a rubric. Okay, capitalization and punctuation's worth 20 points.
Right.
Okay, main topic, you know, and I have a rubric to grade that paper, so the student knows exactly why I gave them the grade, and I give them that rubric ahead of time so they know what's expected. What are we looking for? And that was my concern, having that book and having read that book. Okay, so not on my personal view.
Right.
But what is the library? And Director Chang did do a wonderful job of telling us where he shelves things. But what this is addressing is the fact that when that person comes and challenges where it's shelved, which is what we just went
Right.
through, and then that challenge is said, no, we're putting it here, and then it's re-challenged for us to then review it. We have no guidelines of what we're doing when we review that book.
Okay.
And that's what my motion was, that there should be a guideline that is very specific. I mean, it's going to be general in some areas, but what am I looking at when I am saying that that book is appropriate where it is or where it's not supposed to be?
Fair point. Director Chang, and I do know that some of this is available with regards to the on the web, the actual BOCC website with regards to library board, as to what our duties are and how it was formed and so on. However, I feel that it would be appropriate in the June meeting if you could make a presentation of what, generally speaking, what those guidelines would look like, and not only what those guidelines would look like, but maybe give us some context of, again, understanding that this is the first time we've ever actually
Right.
had to do it.
Right.
What is the precedent in some of the other, with the other library advisory boards?
Okay.
How do they do it? And then at that point, I feel like everybody, you can kind of get my, my pace for this is, of course, patience is a virtue, right? You never go wrong by doing things in a slow, orderly, timely fashion, right? If we make things willy-nilly. So that is why I have taken the stance of, not accepting any motions of anything that's not on the agenda. That way, library staff has time to present a actual, presentation, given how it would affect them, how they do things, so on, so that we get all of the information. Then, once we have all of the information, then the public can make their input. Excuse me, I apologize. And then we can make our input, and then we can make a recommendation based upon that. So that is why, as chair, I have operated that way. I have found that, the tortoise wins the race every time. And, that just seems to work the best. So that being said, if it would please you, Mrs. Nelson, we'll have that available for the June. And then if you would, if there's anything specific that you would like addressed with that, would you email or make a phone call to Mr. Chang? That way we can make sure we have it exactly like we need it on there, if that's possible.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Absolutely. Anyone else? Board member updates?
I have one. CF Appleton Museum has summer camp art activities going on at the museum in Ocala, and the public libraries that all of the branches have. I gave them all to Adam, so I don't have one today. But have the brochures for that, and so that's something that we're doing for the summer, and it kind of integrates actually with the Brush Up on Books where stories and art collide, and so I thought that was kind of cool without knowing that ahead of time, and so I encourage everyone to go to the Appleton. It's one of our hidden gems in the area, and it's a fabulous little place, and they have every first Saturday of the month is free to get in, and that is another perk that for the area is a wonderful opportunity. Thank you.
Very cool. Anyone else?
Yeah, just quickly, I have to say Deb Riley is one of my favorite people, and I'm so happy that we get to embarrass her publicly every chance we get. And I also want to say, and you've all heard me say this at some point before, I don't believe our libraries should be restricting access to information for anyone. And I am so sorry you are all in the place where you have to scramble every month to try and find solutions to problems that simply don't exist. But I appreciate the work that you do, and just know I've got your back. And I really do see all of the work that you are doing, and especially you, Taylor, because I love my PR people. I just want to let you know that. I am very, very excited to see everything that's happening in our libraries.
Anyone else?
I have one other thing. This past Saturday, I went to the farmer market downtown, and I had the privilege of meeting 4 different local authors. And Citrus Rights is now putting up authors every Saturday that we have that, where they can sell their locally authored books. And I thought it was great. They all had cards with scans on it, so you could do that. And I did ask all of them, were they in our public library? And only one of the 4 was in our public library, and he happened to be the speaker that's coming up at Central Ridge, which I was really encouraged to meet him. But I think it would be interesting if we could check into Citrus Writers Guild and see, can we get more of these to be speakers? Can we get, I know we do a great job of having local authors in, but having their books available and being speakers, and I'm going to reach out to our schools to get them into our schools as well. So, yes.
I have to say that we've been utilizing our professionals at the Writers Guild for the last 2-3 years.
Great.
And so we do have local author speakers every fall and spring. And from various topics of how to write things, but also, things that pertain to students like time management and how do you actually, time manage your research and writing and that type of thing.
Yes.
And so, so maybe I need to market that out more to the community as well. But yes, they are a wonderful community resource.
And the Royce Wilson that I met, he writes all mystery books. And he was a police officer in the Tampa area. So he's used those to be like the sounding board, that they are part, as a good writer would, part of each, his experience and creativity. So I thought of him with maybe even a book bag from a local author, because our mystery does so well.
Debbie, help me a little bit. I thought last year when I read at Central Ridge that the book I read to the first graders was by a local author.
Yes.
And
It
what,
was Deb Gay, and
Yep.
she's in all our libraries.
and what was the name of the book? It was the one with the river.
Something about a manatee.
Daddy going fishing.
That.
It was a
Daddy
fishing
going
book.
fishing. Yeah, but all of her books are at the library, and we give them away to,
Yep.
they submit the forms, and we put them in our libraries.
That's cool.
Very cool.
We also have a Crystal River author, Gay Corder, and her books are in the library. I read them.
Anyone else? So, one thing I do want to clarify, I mentioned in just responding to Mrs. Nelson, I have to make a clarification. I said that the minutes are close at best. That was no slight to you. You need to know I have served as a secretary on many boards, and taking minutes is not a fun job. And you do your very best to try to get them as accurate as possible, and it is difficult. So, and we could probably use some new chairs up here. My goodness, these things are falling apart all over. I'm just messing. All right, so board member updates. Next thing on the thing, nobody else, we're good on updates, okay? Next meeting is June the 24th of 2025 at 9 a.m. right here. And if everyone is good, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do we have a second? Second, and all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Seeing there's no opposed, we are adjourned.